Welcome to Taking the Tradition On. It is July 2026, and we are here for Series 7, Archetypes Unlocked. And this is the last in this season as we have reached the summer, and I've got a fantastic finale for you coming up. As ever, we're going to be here for about an hour of conversation. It is an Amy hour, so, it may be a little bit short or more likely a little bit long. It is an hour of discussion and exploration. There will be stories as well, but it is talking about stories and digging deep and exploring the archetype that my guest has chosen to find out a little bit more about him, as well as the archetype itself. As always, I would like to thank my amazing patrons. Some of you are here tonight. You are all completely marvellous and wonderful. And you help maintain this beautiful space and keep this space that we can all share and enjoy and keep free for everybody to come and join us in the room and to welcome anybody wherever and whenever you are to watch later, whenever is the right time for you. All of you are deeply welcome to this space. If you want to join my Patreon page, you don't have to pay. You can join as a free patron and then you will get notifications. And if you could press the like and subscribe on the button, it does make it a little bit easier to find. Obviously, if you want to be a paying patron, you are even more welcome. So tonight, my guest has chosen a really amazing archetype, one that I'm very excited to explore. We are going to be exploring ghosts with the amazing Alton Takiyama-Chung. So welcome, Alton, to Taking the Tradition On. You are a fantastic storyteller. Ever since I knew that you were going to be joining me tonight, I've had so many messages from storytellers going, "Oh, you've got my friend Alton. He's so great. I'm so excited about coming." I mean, seriously, people have been messaging me at 5:00 in the morning. "Oh, it's tonight." I mean, because obviously, internationally renowned, I've had people contacting me from all over the world. So it's a deep pleasure. So I met you because we both work for Super Great Kids podcast, and I've been listening to your stories on there, and those are free. If anybody wants to go and explore Super Great Kids podcast, do. They are traditional stories by storytellers from all over the world, including Alton Takiyama-Chung. Brilliant stories. But the stories that we're going to be talking tonight are not ones that you would find on Super Great Kids at all. So it was quite tricky for us to decide what your archetype was going to be, because you have such a broad repertoire. I mean, it spans genres, it spans cultures. There's so many things that we could have drilled down into and explored in this tiny little bit of time, this 1 hour. But eventually we decided on ghosts, which you are very, very well known for telling ghost stories. But so tell me, why did you want to talk about ghosts tonight and the archetype of ghosts?
Well, I think it's certainly things that have been currently on my mind a lot right now. I've been working a lot. It's one of my secret passions. I'm really known for a lot of my historic stories and things like that, but ghost stories is one of those things that I've just been passionate about. I mean, as growing up as a kid, I was absolutely terrified of ghost stories. See, I grew up in Hawaii, and everyone, when I was growing up, everyone knew someone or had their own ghost stories, and they'd sit around and tell them. And I'd just be terrified. I'd walk away just because I was so scared.
And this is
But
something, I'm very excited about, because like Hawaii, when somebody says Hawaii to me, I mean, I don't know a lot about Hawaii. I don't know a lot about Hawaiian culture. And what we see maybe from afar is sunshine and beaches and happiness. I mean, if somebody said, name something about Hawaii, it wouldn't be ghost stories. And yet there's this amazing, deep and fantastic tradition in Hawaii, isn't there?
yeah, I think Hawaii is one of those strange places where I think the veil between the worlds is very thin. And also, the ancient Hawaiians were very spiritually strong, and all that tradition and things are steeped in the islands and are still there to the day. And like I said, at the time when I was growing up, everyone had ghost stories. But as I got older and I became a storyteller, I realized that no one was telling these stories anymore. And that's the reason why I decided to start. My first stories I began telling were ghost stories from Hawaii because they captured that essence of life that I remembered growing up. And that's the reason why so that was my start into the storytelling world, and I've branched out since then. But it's always remained a deep-seated passion of mine.
Do they have a specific kind of flavour, the Hawaiian ghost stories? Are there markers that would sort of pick them out as being a ghost story from Hawaii?
Well, certainly a lot of them have to deal with the land, and I can give you an example of that. There's a man named Dr. Glenn Grant who collected the strange stories from Hawaii for over 30 years, and he passed away like 2003. But I've got received permission from his estate to tell all of his stories, and let me tell you one of his stories right here. Dr. Grant, he was invited to go and tell ghost stories. I mean, he was a very popular speaker, and at the reunion of a private school in Hawaii, 50th anniversary, he got up there. He told ghost stories for about an hour, and then people began standing up and telling stories of their own. One guy who stood up was a guy named John Witterhouse, and he's what we call a Kama'aina haole. Kama'aina means person of the land, haole meaning Caucasian person. So he grew up in the islands, and he was a teacher, I believe, and he, back in the 50s, he said he spent the summer, one summer, he took his whole family over to the Big Island. They rented one of those Airstream trailers, one of those big aluminum trailers. They drove up and down, around the Big Island of Hawaii, camping at different locations, and had a great summer. It was the best summer they ever had as a family. It was him, his wife, and his two kids. And then came toward the end of like Labor Day weekend, he realized that all the campsites along the coast were occupied, so he had to go inland. He went inland along the Mamalahoa Highway, and he came to Manuka State Park. He said when he got there, there's very few people there. By the time they got the trailer set up and leveled and all that stuff, I mean, they only had the entire camp, the whole park to themselves. So they made dinner, they played cards, and about 10:30 at night, they said, okay, time to go to bed. Now, the main bedroom was in the back of the Airstream, and there was sleeping compartments up, couches and things like that up at the front. That's where the kids slept. Witterhouse and his wife were in the back. And all of a sudden, they turn off the lights, and all they hear this tap, 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 tap. I said, oh, kids. Hey, kids, knock it off. Hey, Dad, it's not us. Tap, 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 tap. He's wondering, well, what could it be? He said, well, had he parked under a tree and now the wind was blowing and tapping the trees, or maybe the wind was picking up little small rocks and blowing it against the side of the trailer. Tap, 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 tap. What could it be? They didn't understand. And all of a sudden, bam, 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 whoa! They jumped out of bed. Something was beating the sides of the trailer. He thought, oh my God. The kids came flying out of the sun. They turned on the lights, and all of a sudden, quiet. He said, He gets a flashlight, opens it up, opens the door, looks outside. No, nobody. There's nobody in the entire park. It sounds like by the restroom. There's nobody by the restroom. They got the entire park to themselves, and it's dead calm. They weren't parked under a tree. There's no wind. Doesn't know what's going on. They're absolutely terrified. They close out the door. They close out the light. Go back to sleep. And as soon as they do, bam, 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 bam! Again, someone's running around the outside of this trailer. There's beating on the outside like a baseball bat. And then all of a sudden, boom, 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 something underneath the trailer is bouncing up underneath the trailer. And then bam, 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 something's on the roof beating on the trailer. They don't know what's going on. Again, Woodhouse is terrified. He picks up a crowbar, picks up a flashlight, says, all right, I'm going to go outside, lock this door, don't ever let anyone else in. He opens the door and again steps down inside. And as soon as he steps onto the tarmac of that park, dead silence. He walks around the trailer. There's nothing. There's nobody. He goes back inside. The wife's terrified. Well, what is it? What is this? There's nobody outside. What do you mean? There's nobody outside. We're here by ourselves. They close the door. And again, the pounding begins around, bam, bam, bam. They don't know what to do. They hold hands. They pray. They sing songs. And it continues until light begins to soften the darkness. Dawn comes, and all of a sudden, it's quiet. Woodell says, okay, time to get out of here. He gets down, starts hooking up the trailer to the truck. Hey, Dad, I gotta go. Oh, can't you hold it? Dad, I've been holding it all night long. I gotta go. Okay, go, hurry up. And he's hooking up the trailer to the truck, and all of a sudden he hears this voice, hey, Dad. It's coming from this side of the parking lot. The boy didn't go to the restroom. He went over to the park. Get over it. No, Dad, you gotta come. Look, come out. And he goes over. There's his son. There's a low stone wall, and on the side of the stone wall, there's these two basalt rocks. The words have been chiseled from the rocks, but the weather has eroded them away. They can't really read them anymore. And at the base of these two stones are pools of mist. And as they watch him, the son goes, Dad, what's that? And these pools of mist begin roiling. And then they start rising up. And then, they dissipate. Let's get out of here. They get back in the truck. They go down the road. They're driving along the road. All of a sudden, they see this general store. He pulls off to the side of that general store. Goes up to the guy, the owner, and says, "What can you tell me about the Manuka State Park?" "What? You mean Obake Park?" "Obake? Yeah, that's Japanese for ghost." "Hey, you didn't stay there last night, did you?" "Oh well." Where you guys go north? You don't see any local people over there. You don't stay. Hey, did you put food in the graves? No. I bet you they kept you all night long. Hey, you gotta respect the dead, man. This was Dr. Glenn Grant's favorite ghost story for many, many years because it was a first-hand account of something very strange that actually happened. And he told it for many years, but it was years before he was able to actually go to Manuka State Park. He flew over to the Big Island of Hawaii, rented a car in Kona, drove in. And he kind of thought, well, you know, if there's no sign, if there are no graves out there, then it's just kind of a nice story. But if it is there, this is going to be an amazing story. And he pulls in, and sure enough, someone has erected a sign that says, Ancient Hawaiian Graves. And there's a low stone wall, two basalt pillars, pieces of basalt, words chiseled into them that you can't read because they've been weathered away. But Dr. Grant knew that beneath those stones were the guardians of Obake Park. I've been telling this story for years. And I was in Okinawa one Halloween with a group tour people from Hawaii. The tour group said, well, can you entertain them? Can you go tell them some ghost stories? I said, okay, from Hawaii? I'll tell you some ghost stories from Hawaii. I told the story. At the end, this guy kind of pulls me aside and says, I know the backstory to the story you just told. I said, tell me. He said, well, my uncle, he was in the 442, the all-Japanese American unit fought in Europe, and he was a heavy equipment operator. He got a job with the state, and back in the 50s, they're sitting there, they made Manuka State Park. But back then, they drop you off with the crew and the equipment and all the things that you need, and you were there until you finished making the park. Well, he said we're driving along, and they camped out. Everyone kept saying, something's weird about this land. Something's odd. I don't feel right. And then they began moving across. They were grading the land. You know, there's this big grader. Their bulldozer. They're clearing the land, flattening it out. All of a sudden, the bulldozer driver is operating. All of a sudden, choom, bulldozer disappears into the ground. Whoa! The guy, you know, he lands. He's looking around. He says, "Oh, the dust clears." And he says, he's scraped over the top of a lava tube. Now, when the lava comes off the volcano, it's molten rock. It rolls down toward the sea. And sometimes the top part gets cool and it solidifies. But the underneath is still molten rock. And so once that lava continues moving down to the sea, you end up with a stone straw. That's a lava tube. This bulldozer had graded over the top of the lava tube, and the whole cave had collapsed, and he fell into it. And he's in there, he's looking around, and he sees bones. Human bones. Ancient Hawaiians believed that everyone had mana, power, and most of the power belonged in your bones, especially your long bones, like your femur, your thigh bones. And ancient Hawaiians, you could, they had the belief that, you could conduct magic and use these things to harm other people. So they were very protective. They would gather the bones of their dead and they secreted them away. Someone had found the entrance to this lava tube and followed it back and laid the bones of all their ancestors in this lava tube. And they just grated over the top of it and fell into the top of it. Well, they got a crane, they lifted the boulders out, everyone's fine. But that night, they could say, hey, they could hear coming from that hole voices speaking Hawaiian. And they're going, oh, what are we going to do? We got to do something. Everyone's getting spooked. And so my uncle, he got some food from dinner. He put it next to the hole. Said, sorry, we didn't mean to disturb you, but here, this for you. And everything calmed down. They did that every night. And the park was finished, but they said, what are we going to do with this hole? We can't just leave this hole like that. So they, okay. They filled it in, and they built this retaining wall around it, and they made those markers, and they put the markers in there. They kept saying, sorry. But he said that is the reason why that park is known as Obake Park.
That's such a fantastic story. Have you been there? Did you go when you?
I've not been to Monuka State Park. I've been to the Big Island, but I've never been to that part of the island.
It's just. I guess it'd be like your mentor and like kind of the guy who collected all of the stories. Like kind of is always that. Oh, will it be a great story? Will it actually be there or not? But I mean, it was there when he went. So just.
And there are you can Google it. There are actually photographs of that stone wall and of those basaltic pillars.
Yeah, Cecilia's saying what an amazing story as well. And James going, yeah, wonderful, Alton. Quite sensible not to go. I don't know. I think it sounds like you need to have a pilgrimage there and take some food as an offering at some point. But how amazing to hear the backstory as well. And just
Yeah, that was amazing from out of nowhere. Just some guy who just happened to know the backstory and happened to be in the audience and was willing to tell it to me. See, those are the stories I really love because it's not only, oh, something spooky happened to me, but no. Here's what happened beforehand and why these things are the way they are now. Those are the stories I love. I treasure those stories.
And that's one of the great reasons for being a storyteller, isn't it? You have to have somebody who's the focal point. You have to be the one who is going out telling bits of the story to collect all the other bits. There has to be a central piece to attract all of the different pieces. And that's you. That's you. So, I love that. And it's kind of, there's so many great things about that story. I guess there's so many different directions we can go in at this point, and it's so you tell those Hawaiian stories, and I suppose that is that the reason that you became a storyteller, of kind of seeing that need of a gap of kind of this amazing, rich tradition that was being lost and nobody catching it.
That's pretty much how I got started, and Glenn Grant wasn't really my mentor. He's just someone I knew. And when I first started off, I interviewed him because I wanted to know what was this all about. And that's one of the things he asked me. Why do you want to tell these stories? And I said, I thought about it. I said, that's just the reason why. Because, this is a slice of life that doesn't exist anymore. I mean, I don't hear these stories like this anymore. Everyone had a story, and now I don't hear them anymore. And he looked at me and said, oh, okay, that's good. That's about the end of our interaction. But that launched me off into this whole idea of getting in front of audiences and telling stories. And not only just from Hawaii, but from wherever I've gone. I've collected stories and things like that from even out here in Portland where I live, or even into the literature, into like the Ghost Stories from Japan by Lafcadio O'Hearn, who began, these stories have been told for hundreds of years in Japan, and then he began collecting them and publishing them in the West turn of the last century. That goes back to, the Edo period from like 1600s up to the 1880s or so. The whole tradition of telling ghost stories in Japan. Because in Japan, the summers are really hot and humid, and to get a little bit of a thrill, and also, they would tell the tradition of telling 100 ghost stories in a night. They have an L shape. You have an L shape room. You have the room where all the storytellers were. You have this long corridor, and then you have a turn to another room. And in that room were 100 candles, and there's a table and a mirror. And the tradition was everyone would get up and tell a true ghost story or something that they'd heard or something they'd read. And then they'd go walk down that dark corridor, go to that room, blow out one candle, look in the mirror. They do this supposedly, every time they do this, they're building energy supposedly so that you're attracting the ghosts. And so the last person who told the 100th story goes down there, blows out the candle, looks in the mirror, you'll see the ghost. And so lots of times they tell like 99 stories and stop. But that is the tradition. You get that spookiness, that thrill because it's really hot, and all of a sudden you get that chill, that shiver. But this was the need for people to go out and gather these stories so that they'd have stories to tell. It started off in the courts, and now it did filter down to the common people, and that's the reason why there's a long tradition of telling ghost stories in Japan. But pretty much wherever I have traveled, there have been strange stories of things that happen, different monsters, explanations of why things are the way they are, and strange hauntings and things that go bump in the night.
I mean, I think, what do you think it is about ghost stories? Because, I mean, obviously, sort of throughout this year, I've been exploring lots and lots of different archetypes. And, I mean, and taking the tradition on is primarily about oral traditions and oral storytelling. And wherever you go, like the ghost stories are the last ones to linger. You kind of lost nearly all of the oral tradition, and storytelling be a thing that people go, well, storytelling, we don't do storytelling. What is that? Is it just for kids? And kind of really having people not feeling that they've got any connection to their roots or to their traditions. And yet you talk to any teenager, they will be able to tell you ghost stories. They might have heard them off the television, but there'll always be ones that they've heard from their mates, and ones that they might be set in modern day, but they will be able to tell you a ghost story. And I don't know anybody who doesn't know a ghost story.
Well, I think one of the reasons why things persist the way they are, because I think it's a universal human need for assurance that there is survival after death. I mean, that's the premise for many religions, that, hey, you will see your loved ones later on, or that you will continue on in another form. And I think this, and also an explanation of things that we really don't understand. I think that there is probably a scientific explanation for things that people experience. Science is not has progressed to the point where we can measure it, we can really understand it. I mean, electricity was kind of a strange thing before it really became into the modern era.
I'm still
Chemistry.
not convinced that. I mean, like, you might be able to explain it with science, but it's still magical.
Yeah,
Just because
and
you
so
can
that
explain how things work, I don't think you necessarily explain why.
well, there's the need to go and encapsulate or put our minds around the unknown or the unknowable. And some people say, yeah, it's faith, but other people say, there's something odd out there, that there is things that can harm you, things that you need to be afraid of as self-preservation, or things you really shouldn't be messing with. And there are also good things out there that can look after you, take care of you, guide you. So it's, I think in the Hawaiian traditions, there were the kahuna ana ana, those the priests who could pray you to death. And there were also the priests who could turn that around. And they existed, both of them had places in society, everything existed in balance. And so that I think that's kind of where we are. I mean, to always say that there's only good things and light things out there, you're sort of not looking at the darker side of things. When I think that if you turn a blind eye to one, you're going to be in balance. You have to go and consider the possibility that they're both out there and that they do balance, and that is the whole reason why things move along they do. There's all this continual tension between the two. So I think that's kind of one of the reasons why things persist, because we don't know, and we want the thrill, and we want a little bit of the campfire tales and things like that. So I think that's where a lot of we don't know, and here's an explanation, and it's an adventure, and we're safe. It's a story we can tell, and we're still safe, but we get that thrill of having gone on this experience.
I think you've hit on it there. It's the thrill is a different thing, isn't it? Because you started off, there is that thing. I think we do want to know about proof of life after death and have that connection and having our loved ones. But that's not really what you get from the stories. All the stories are terrifying. I mean, I think the stories are out of balance. I mean, we don't have in the Western tradition. You may know different. I mean, I think it's different in different cultures and different traditions. But in the Western tradition, we don't have a lot of stories about ghosts coming back and helping you. And even if they do come back and help you, we're still frightened of them. I mean, like, we are frightened of ghosts. They are things of the dark, and they are things to be scared of. There's not a lot of balance there, which is a real strange thing, isn't it? Kind of, we're terrified of everything out that comes from death, and yet we want that proof, and we just
Sure, I
haven't
mean,
got that matched up at all.
I think fear is sort of like this real autonomic response that say, hey, you need to survive this right now. And then your rational mind is based on past experience and knowledge and training. This is kind of what we think we can understand. And, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so we have the knowledge, we have the primal fear, and we also have the wisdom to figure out what to do about it, and how to react to it. So I think, yeah, I mean, and a lot of it, ghost stories, they're the cautionary tale. They help children understand what to do, what not to do, how to handle certain situations. And that, as an example, I tell a lot of historic stories. And the Japanese Americans who were pretty much put in incarceration camps during World War II because of threat of Japanese invasion, and they formed a unit. A lot. There are also Japanese from Hawaii. They volunteered. They formed this unit, but the 442nd, they were in Hawaii. They've been on an island in the Pacific, and they get shipped over to Europe, and they're going, we've never seen any of this, and we don't know what to really do. But a lot of these guys, they had gone through Japanese school, and they had a class they had to teach was called ethics, essentially, where basically they told stories. They got stories of Japanese heroes and myths and things like the legends, and they said, well, these are the ideals of how we should behave, what we should be doing, and these are how these men. And they knew that they needed to be superlative soldiers to be considered average. And so they just emulated all the stories of the behaviors of these heroes they had learned in these schools, and when they were in Europe, in situations they've never been in before. And because of that, they were able to go and persevere and are greatly respected because of that. But that whole idea of, here we have stories, we don't know what to do, but this is what these people did, how they reacted, how they survived this situation. Here's a similar situation, we don't know what to do, let's go do what they did, and hopefully we be okay. So that whole idea of learning and again, adventuring, figuring out what's going on, experiencing it, and yet applying what you've learned from stories to a real life situation.
And they were superlative, weren't they? I mean, they were an amazing unit, and now we know why. It was because of the stories. I'm really interested with the ghost stories. So you tell stories that go back to kind of like the 600s, but you also are still collecting lots and lots of modern stories, aren't you? So you're actually a scout for spook stories. So you work for Spooked podcast, collecting
Yeah, I'm
like true stories as well. So I'm really interested to know how much of this is also like, so obviously you're all excited and interested by the tradition. Have you ever seen or heard a ghost? Is there kind of like a personal motivation of that thing that's happened to you that you can't explain?
Oh yeah, these are things I don't really talk about much because yeah, and that's certain. Yes, I am a story scout for the Spooked podcast, and I'm looking for people who had first-hand experiences with the paranormal who are willing to go and chat with me about it. First of all, for me to go and just learn their stories, maybe tell their stories, but also if they're interested to go on and on the podcast themselves. So yeah, I mean it's I can understand. A lot of people don't want to talk about these things because they don't want they want to be afraid. They got their reputation, da, 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 da. And so yeah, so I can understand their hesitancy, but I also have my own hesitancy. But here's some of the things that have happened to me. I remember it's actually happened when I was in Ireland. I was on a business trip, and I was outside of Dublin, and near this town called Leaslip, And my boss said, "Oh, there's there's not very many places you can stay out there. There's this one town called the Barberstown Castle, or Barberstown Tower, or something like that. I forget exactly." And he said, "You can stay there." And so I was my business partner and I were traveling there. So she checks in. They got this, this 13th century tower, 5-story tower, and attached to this very luxurious, sumptuous wing. And so my partner gets a room in the wing. I'm looking around. I'm sinking into the carpet. They got towel, warmers. I mean, this is a really plush, cozy room. And of course, me being a stupid American says, "Can I see a room in the tower?" She goes, "Of course, sir." They take me there, and all the rooms are named after people who have owned the tower at one time or another, and they have the dates in which they owned it. Eric Clapton owned it in 1991, whatever's. We're moving on down, and they take me to this one room where the original owner's name is, and the room says 1275. We open it up, and I walk inside, and it's a stone tower. I mean, it's like maybe a 20-foot by 20-foot room. 3-foot thick stone casement windows, and then there's an oak door with iron bands, which is the door to the stairwell that go up and down the stairs. Stone everything, and all these faux antique things all over the place. So the guy says, "Can I stay here?" He goes, "Of course you can, sir." So he goes behind this Chinese screen and starts pulling out these space heaters, starts hooking them up. I go, "No, I can do that." "Oh, very good, sir." He leaves, and I'm looking around. I spent like 20 minutes walking around this room, going, "This is God. No one's gonna think that I mean, this is a real hodgepodge of stuff. I mean, there's a Chinese screen, there's a big oak armoire, and all kinds of stuff. I gotta take a picture of this room." So I go to the far side of the room. I'm looking at the Chinese screen and all these faux pieces of antiques. I light up. I take a picture. As soon as the flash goes off, I hear this boom, boom, boom from behind the Chinese screen. I'm going, "Oh gosh, something's here." I gotta spend about 5 minutes. I don't know. Do I really want to look? I don't know. I go behind the Chinese screen. I take a peek, and a space heater has fallen over. I'm going, "Oh, great. There's something here." And I scared it. Oh, no. And so I try to go to sleep, and, I can't go to sleep. Wake up and say, fine, I talk to him. "Look, I'm just here. I'm just going to spend the night here. Leave me alone." I'm just, because I don't know what else to do. And I'm reading up in the history because they have these little booklets in the room. Apparently, this tower belonged to this one family, but it was rented out to this other family. And upon the death of this one individual, the tower would revert back to the original family. Well, the guy died. The second family didn't want to give up the tower, so they buried him in the cellar. I'm going, "I bet you I know who's wandering around here." And, it's like, wherever you get that feeling that someone's standing there, and you look and there's nobody there. I was in the bath laying down, all of a sudden, boom. Oh dear, okay, leave me alone. Gosh. It got to the point where I just got so unnerved. I went across the street, got a pint of Irish whiskey, and I said there, "Okay, I'm going to have some Irish whiskey. I'm going to numb myself out. I don't want to hear any of this stuff. I'm going to watch television." I turn on the television. What is it? Irish ghost stories. I'm going, "Oh, gee." So I said, I can't go down to the desk and tell them I want to change rooms because I asked to stay here. Dang. So that was kind of like, probably the again, most tangible thing that ever happened to me. The other weird things that have happened that I just can't explain, but that was the one that really the first one that really just rocked me and said, okay, there are things out here that I don't really know, that I can't explain, and I got to know more.
But you're a storyteller, so the thing that really stands out in that story to me is, A, it's a great story, but you didn't offer them any food. Like, you're not listening to your elders, Alton. Like, you were told what to do.
But he's Irish. I should have offered him some of the whiskey.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I thought that's what the whiskey was for. You were going to bring the whiskey. You're going to go, "I'm really sorry for disturbing you. I appreciate your presence here." Like, do the groveling, like you were taught. Like, that is what you told us in the first story. Food, grovel, or whiskey.
Yeah, well,
yeah,
this is way before I was a storyteller. Way before I was a storyteller.
Okay,
Maybe that's just why I became a storyteller.
Liz is in the house. She's from Ireland. Liz, tell us what is the deal for the appeasing Irish ghosts. I'm thinking that whiskey is definitely the way to go. Irish whiskey.
I don't think you take any appeasing, to be honest with you. No.
Right, there you go.
No.
What? They're all vengeful.
Some are just sad.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that is. I think there is a lot of sadness in ghosts, isn't it? I mean, that's the thing. It's the ones, and there's different reasons for being ghosts. So you've talked about the guardians of the land, and that is a very specific thing. And I mean, I certainly know quite a lot of stories where ghosts have been trapped and forced into being spirits. So, like it used to be a real thing. I mean, like that's what the Song of London Bridge is about. You know, kind of walling up somebody within a bridge or within a wall or within a castle, so that they become the guardian spirit of that place. Which is slightly different to being a guardian of the land. But then there's those ones that just, you know, there's always that thing of there's something that they haven't done. And I have this horrible feeling that that's going to be me when I die, because I'm that person who's always walking around going, God, there's something I was meant to do. I'm doing something. I mean, I do that in life. So in death, it's probably going to be the same. So it's like, there's something I was supposed to do.
Well, certainly, I think there's, well, from if you believe a lot of things that are popular literature, there are the recurring spirits, the ones that are just kind of like tape recording, videotape recording, that is constantly doing the same action over and over again. Where was I? I was in not Canterbury. I was in York, and there's this, they say that they hear this person opening a chest, counting gold, and then running away. And it happens every single time, as clockwork on certain days and things like that. That's kind of just like you've imprinted upon the land or the room or the area, and you just are trapped doing this thing recurrently. There certainly are sad spirits, those people who have died unexpectedly, or unfinished business, unrequited love, or whatever it is. There are also those who are just kind of like all these emotions, expanded upon in an area that's trapped. There's the whole idea of like Shirley Jackson's Haunting of Hill House, where buildings act as storage batteries for all the energy and emotions that are expressed within the walls of a house, and suddenly certain persons come and they trigger it and they're releasing all that energy. When I was another one was when I was in York, behind the cathedral, there's an old Tudor style house, thatched roof, cross beams, and I think it was in the 60s. A policeman was walking the beat late at night. He looks up in the window and he sees a little girl tapping on the window. And he looks up and she kind of just fades away. And they go back into the history and said, when the plague came to York, and the whole family just were walled up inside their house because no one knew what caused the plague. They just didn't want it. So this family got it. They walled it up, and everyone in the family died except this little girl. Some people had natural immunity, and she was immune, but no one would let her out. She ran out of food, and she'd sit there in the window and tap on the window saying, I'm okay, I'm fine, everyone else is dead, but I'm okay. But no one would go and help her, and she eventually died of starvation there. And that every now and then her ghost still sits in that window and continues to tap, get people attention saying, let me out, I'm okay. These types of things, these stories that I hear that are like that, that they have that yearning, longing to get out. There's also, certainly those who have forgotten that, the hey, my treasure is buried here, go find it type situation, or else I need to go and finish things. I mean, there's the case of the Greenbrier ghost. I think this is in America. This woman marries this man, and she is killed, and he is mourning her, and he says that no one touch her, we'll bury her exactly the way she is, with her scarf around her neck. And so they honor his wishes. Obviously he's a grieving man, and the mother thinks something's odd about this. She always thinks something's odd, and then in her dreams the ghost of her daughter comes. He says, no, he killed me, he broke my neck. And so she goes to the courts and say, no, there's something wrong about this. This man is, something is wrong. And so they go and exhume her body and find out, sure enough, her neck has been broken. And he wouldn't let any person examine her. And so he is actually convicted of her murder. And I think that's also a documented case in which a ghost came and got brought to trial her murderer. So things like that, I think, are interesting and I find fascinating.
Well, me too. I think that is an amazing story, and you're firing off so many stories in my head that I want to share with you. I think we need to light those 100 candles and just start swapping stories backwards and forward and backwards and forwards. If you fancy doing that one night, I'm well up for it, as long as I'm not the last person.
Like I said, we can go up to 99 and call it good.
That suits me. Unless Liz Weir though is fearless, so we'll send her.
Never saw anything worse than myself.
There you go. Well, it's really interesting, isn't it? I mean, because I've got lots of stories from Britain that you're firing off that I'd love to talk to you about. I mean, there's a story that I know kind of, because I think children and ghosts are really interesting as well, because they haven't been taught the fear yet, and so there's quite a lot of stories of ghosts that have stayed to look after children, and to teach them, or to bring them, or just to keep them company, or lots of ways of actually really looking after children until kind of the parents find out, and then they bring the fear in. But I'm really hot on British folklore. Okay, I know a lot about British folklore, and I can kind of extend out into sort of Grimm's and Northern Europe, but I do not know any stories about. I don't know about the Hawaiian culture. I don't know about Korean culture. I don't know about Japanese culture, and I'm really interested in, because you've really explored that and kind of the ghosts in different countries. So while you're here, have you found that there's really different flavors when you go to different countries, and kind of and things that we might not know about in this space here? So we are quite a broad audience, and obviously Taking the Traditional is available to everybody, but we tend to be maybe the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah, I think, there's, and certainly in Singapore, there's a whole collection of stories that I found. A lot of them are maybe urban legends for all I know. But the one about the guy who goes, he's a rich man, he drives along, his car breaks down, pouring rain. He gets out and he finds himself in the middle of a rubber plantation, and out in the distance he sees a dim light. So he moves toward that dim light, and he finds out there's these guys are in this little grass shack playing cards, and he's soaking wet. He said, "Oh, I tell you what, we're going to play cards. They got a little kerosene lamp. Go upstairs, find yourself a bed, go to sleep. We'll deal with your car in the morning." So he gets up, he goes to sleep in the room, he's dripping wet, takes up his wet clothes, crawls in the bed, lots of beds, and he wakes up, and there's this, bureau. I mean, a little dresser, and with a mirror, a vanity. And there's a beautiful woman there. She's combing her long black hair, and she's looking in the mirror, combing her long black hair. And he opens her eyes and looks at her, and she's gorgeous, and he's staring at her, and she notices him staring at her. And she smiles, and she grabs the top of her head, pulls it off, sets it on the vanity so that it's now looking at him and smiling. He's terrified. He grabs his stuff, he goes running downstairs and said, he's screaming. The men who playing cards are going, what? He said, no, there's a woman upstairs. Oh, yeah, what? He said, no, she took her head off and she put it on the bureau and is smiling at me. And the men all kind of look at each other, they look back at him, and they grab tops of their heads, they take them off and put them on the table too. I mean, that's kind of a little urban legend from Singapore. But in the traditions, like in the Philippines, they have different monsters. They have the aswang, which looks around for pregnant women. And if it finds a hole in the roof, it extends this long proboscis, little nose, all the way down, and taps into the woman's belly to go and suck out the amniotic fluid. That's what he lives on. Or the baby, that's what he does. So they've got all these different monsters, different traditions. And Japan is full of monsters. All the different... Because Japan in the Edo period, distances were long, valleys, and communication was difficult because they didn't have wheeled vehicles for many years, and so the traditions of the folklore would be in these little tiny provinces, and they'd be different just from one side of the province to the other because these people were so isolated. So they have the whole concept of yokai, which are monsters essentially. And in fact, there's one of these stories from Lafcadio Hearn, he calls it Mujina, but in actuality, the actual monster is called a Nepera Bo, a faceless ghost, but he called it a Mujina. And so, this is one of his stories, short story. On the Akasaka Road that runs through Tokyo, there was a stretch of the road called the Kii no Kunizaka, or the slope of the province of Kii. A time before rickshaw, time before streetlights, pedestrians go miles out of their way so as not to be caught on the Kii no Kunizaka before the sun went down. Because of the Mujina, a faceless ghost that used to haunt this section of the road. On one part of the road there was a lofty walls of an imperial palace. On the other side of the road it sloped down to a moat that rose up to some gardens. And the last person who saw the Mujina was a merchant from the Kiyobashi quarter, and this is the story that he used to tell. Late one night he was going up the Kii no Kunizaka when he came upon a young girl, kneeling by the side of the road, weeping bitterly. He looked at her, he looked around, there's no one else around. He says, "Oh, honorable maiden, Jochu, please, do not cry. Tell me what is wrong. Perhaps I can help you." And he meant what he said because he was a kind man. He looked at this woman. She was a fine kimono. Her hair was done up in that of a style of a noble house. But she continued just to weep and cry bitterly. She turned her back to him, raised her sleeve, and continued to cry. He said, "Oh, honorable maiden, please, this is no place for a young girl like you. Please, let me help you." And he reached out and put his hand on her shoulder. And as soon as he did, she stopped crying. She stopped moaning. She dropped her sleeve, turned to him, passed her hand across her face, and he saw that she had no eyes, no nose, no mouth. Well, he screamed! When running up the Kii no Kunizaka as fast as he possibly could, you could hear the slap, slap, slap of the wooden geta following her, and all that little laugh going, oh, he ran. Oh, the sweat was dripping down his brow. He thought his heart was going to explode out his chest. His lungs were on fire. The sweat went all the way down his back. And then out in the distance, he saw a light, a dim light, like the light of a firefly. And he thought, oh, light means people. People means I'm saved. And he ran to this light. It turned out to be the lantern of a traveling soba or noodle seller who just set up his little stand there by the side of the road. And this merchant threw himself down at the feet of this soba seller going, Kore. What is wrong? Is someone hurting you? No. Down by the boat. What? Robbers? No. There's a woman. A woman? What kind of woman? Oh, no, you don't understand. It's terrible. Here, have some noodles. They will calm you down. Oh, arigato, thank you. It was terrible. What do you mean? She had no eyes, no nose, no mouth. She had no face. Was it anything like this? And that's when the merchant realized that the soba seller had no eyes, no nose, no mouth. He had no face. And that is when the lantern went out.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Oh, I love that. And it's but it's interesting because you're sort of saying, oh, they've got different traditions and different things in different places in the world. And actually, I think we do have those stories in Britain. Similar, not the same, similar. And there's a story I know that kind of combines both of those. That briefly is, there's a lad and he's on his way home, and it's dark and there's only a tiny sliver of moon, and he's kind of feeling all the prickles on the back of his neck, and he's being watched. And he sees there's an old woman up in front of him, and he runs up and he goes, "Oh, you must be scared to walk home on your own. Let me keep you company." Like, I'll look after you. And he walks her home, and she's there and she's carrying her basket, and he walks her nearly all of the way home until she's, and he's like, "Oh, can I carry the basket for you?" And he takes the basket, and of course then there is her face looking up at him from the basket, and he turns and sees that there's nothing underneath her hood, and kind of drops the basket with the head rolling down the hill and him legging it all the way home. Yeah. So, and I love that there are those. There's always the first-hand experience, and yet the story is always universal. And it's just such a. It just seems such a. It is a real true archetype. It's just something that brings all people together. That universal experience and those universal stories. that we all
Yeah.
can relate to. We all know somebody who it's happened to.
Well, it's also going back. I mean, in China, they tell ghost stories for hundreds of years back there, and I tell some stories back in the sixth, eighth century, and a lot of them are funny, and others are, they're cautionary. But even like in Shakespeare, Banquo's ghost in Hamlet, it comes back. They're all this thing comes back and tells you, hey, this is what actually happened, or you need to go and watch out for this, or you killed me, and now I'm going to come back and haunt you. So again, Hamlet talking to his father. In again, many different traditions, there are those things that we just do not understand, or they come back and help or warn or frighten you for you shouldn't be messing with these things. You shouldn't do these things. Stay on the right path, and learning tools and things like that, I suppose. And also, I think just a kind of entertainment and to go and keep people interested and occupied.
There is something about shared fear in a safe space.
Exactly, adventure. That's what it's
Yeah.
called, I think.
Yeah, but that thing of doing it in the light with other people in that safe space, which suddenly seems a lot less entertaining when you walk home on your own.
Yeah, there is that. Oh gosh, I remember when I was first starting out, I was invited to this camp. But the sheriff department put on this camp for some kids, and I was up in the coastal hills of Oregon. And I said, you want ghost stories? Yeah, we want ghost stories. Okay. And so I told them ghost stories, and I said, you want me, how scared do you want me to go? "Oh, just scare them." I said, okie dokie. And so I'm telling these ghost stories, and I don't know. I think there were some coyotes nearby, and I get to this point where it gets really quiet, and I pause, and the coyote goes off, and then it was looking at each other, and then they had horses there and things like that. The horses getting a little disturbed, and I finished it. They said, "Okay, great," and then the kids were just terrified because this is before I understood that you have to change your stories for the different grade for it match to your audience. And so these kids are going back to their tents, and the horse was, were getting nervous, and they go, "What was that? What was that?" They're getting terrified. I never got invited back to that camp again. But the whole idea is yeah, but I realized that, okay, there are different stories for different kids and things like that, and you need to go and just because someone says, "Oh yeah, scare them," they may not exactly know what they're talking about or what they really want. I've been to places where, again, I wouldn't never be invited back again because they asked me, "Yeah, these stories are fine." I told the stories, and people going, "That's not true because only God can make people come back to life again." I'm going, "Whoops," or else, it's.
Yeah. My first babysitting job, I never got invited back. I thought it was kind of quite a tame ghost story.
Yeah, little kids, you sit there telling. I didn't think it was a scary ghost story, but these little kids are holding on to each other. I'm going, "Whoops," and then you learn how to break out of it and go, okay. Now here comes the really scary part. It's going to be okay. And then you step back into the story again. But, these little things you learn as you go along, or you realize, I've gone too far. How do I pull this back? Because you want to be invited back again.
Yeah, definitely. Right. Mike, it's lovely to see you. Yeah, thank you. We should invite you at the end. So we are just about up to time. And I think we've explored all sorts of ghosts from all different places. But is there anything that you wanted to say to finish off with? Because it's such a big topic, and we could go on this for hours. And I think, actually, we might be sitting here swapping stories for a little while once we turn off the cameras.
Just that I think, again, these ghost stories are a passion of mine. And I know that other people have their own personal ghost stories. I would love to go and hear them just because I am thrilled by it. I want to hear other people's expressions. And like I said, I'm also looking for people who've had first-hand experiences with the paranormal who are willing to go and tell me their stories. So yeah, get a hold of me, Alton at AltonTakiyama-Chung, and we can talk, and I'd love to go and hear your stories.
Well, and this is it. So you are very, very easy to get hold of, altonchung.com. and your email is on there. It's really easy to contact you. I'm always up for stories as well. I really, that's why I'm a storyteller, is because I love stories. I want people to come and tell me stories. But you can have first dibs. You can have them for the podcast. But if you want to tell them to me as well, I'd be very happy about that. So if you have enjoyed tonight, please do go and find out more about Alton Chung. His dates are on the website. You can find him on Super Great Kids. And I think you're on Facebook as well. You're on Instagram. You're really easy to find. And I'm there's lots of things coming up lots of comments coming up on the chat as well. So Cecilia's saying, my friends and I used to spend hours telling each other shockingly terrifying ghost stories when I was small. I hope kids do this now. I think they do. I remember when I first went to university, kind of that was it. It's always that thing as well of all the really terrifying urban legends and all the things you see in the mirror, all of the students who died in the halls before you. I mean, it's like you have to do. It's part of Freshers Week, isn't it? Just like terrify the newbies. Mary saying, I tell the kids the trick of putting shoes facing 2 directions as taught by Jackie Torrance.
Oh yeah.
So that they can't do it, can they? They can't stay if their shoes are in different directions. If they're the same,
they get confused.
Yeah.
There are all kinds of things like that that you like putting pins in front of doorways or matchsticks, so they have to sit there and count them and they lose count and things like that. Again, different ways of allaying fears and making sure that people are safe. I think that's the takeaway, I think, of a lot of that. I mean, kids are very resilient. I mean, certainly as a kid, I had an amazing imagination, and I could see these things, and I would be terrified because they tell me a story, and I could actually visualize it actually happening. And so that's the reason why I kind of backed away from all that. So yeah, little things people can do to protect themselves, as far as the ghost can't follow you, the ghost won't do this, or else. I remember I told a bunch of stories to Boy Scouts, and they were going, they can't follow us home. And I said, no, these stories happen far, far away. They got to cross a big ocean. You're going to be fine. But reassuring the audience and things like that is, again, I think part of the job of a storyteller, to make sure you're okay.
I think so. And that is the thing, yes. So ghosts share a lot of, like fairies and witches and things. A lot of supernatural beings cannot cross running water. So make for the stream, jump over the stream, hang Rowan at your door, put silver in your pocket, put salt in your pocket. Salt and bread is really powerful.
It's universal. I think in Hawaii, they're, salt, in your pocket, or there's even a special salt that they get from Kauai that they never sell, but they can only give away, but it's very spiritually strong. And again, things like other people have told me, you can carry that salt with you, but also sprinkle a little bit behind you, so you don't want to be followed. So that you don't want to throw it behind you, because if they're standing right behind you, it gets in their eye, they get really ticked off at you. So if you sprinkle it behind you, it's okay. Other people said, no. Water, fresh water. For whatever reason, they can't have fresh water. Pour a little fresh water on the ground, say, this is for you. You can stay here. And different ways, different belief structures. Everyone has, wherever I've traveled, everyone has different belief structures. In Bali, they have these little offerings of rice and flowers and things and sweet herbs that they offer to the spirits around. This one girl was telling me a story, saying, my housekeeper would do this for me, my car, every day. And one day my car wouldn't start because she was gone or whatever, so I had to go and get one of them. I put it down and my car started up. And things like that. Different beliefs and things. So I find that fascinating.
I love that. Yeah, it's either that thing of some cultures, it's food and it's herbs and it's flowers and it's a thank you and it's a be safe, be well, we appreciate you. Or there's the holy water, get out of my face. I'm using the power of God against you because you're evil, go away. I mean, it's a very different, attitude towards spirits. But I think, most cultures have. It's like you were saying, we started off talking about balance. And there's probably more balance maybe in the world of the dead than there is in the world of the living. That there kind of has to be that nature. There's definitely kind of helpful spirits and guardians and ancestors. And that's the thing that we didn't really get on talking about today is ancestors and kind of the huge amount of belief around the world in the power of the ancestors to look after us, you know, and
Certainly, yeah.
because that's the power of the dead, but they're not really ghosts in quite the same way.
Well, the Hawaiians have a belief in what they call aumakua. Aumakua are guardian spirits. They act as protectors, guidances, and they actually act as messengers between the gods and people. And the Hawaiian belief is that an aumakua is one of your ancestors who has come back in different forms, and depending upon your lineage, your aumakua might be a shark, a mano, or it might be a wind, or it might be a certain plant. But the whole idea is that they come back and they help you. Ancient Hawaiians believe that they didn't really have a word for ghosts because they could see them. They were around them all the time. The spirits of their ancestors were helping them and things like that. And so, again, your different belief, your different structure, what you observe, what you see. Again, there were things that, you know, that were unpleasant, that were kind of harmful, but there were also those things that helped you too. And again, in balance. And I think that they're probably I'm more scared of people than you should be of spirits, because people can really hurt you. And spirits
back to
may
being in the
not be able to
woods,
help
isn't it? You know, if you're in the woods, do you choose man, bear, ghost? You know. Anyway, Eden saying, Alton, your cheerful affability makes the scary parts of your stories even more terrifying. Yes, Eden, I am with you. Well, as usual, we've gone over time because, and I could keep going for ages, and we are. So if you're with us live, you know, don't sign off, because we are going to stay in the room for a little bit. We're going to turn off the recording and have a little bit of a chat. We might be sharing some ghost stories with you, Alton. This will be a time when people can turn the cameras on and we can share stories. But before we get to that point, for those of you who are joining us later, thank you very much for visiting us from wherever you are in the future. You have time travel back to be with us, and we are glad to have your company. So yes, AltonTakiyama-Chung.com. Get in touch with Alton. Tell him your ghost stories. You might end up on the Spooked podcast. Please do like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, Taking the Tradition on YouTube channel. It does make us easier to find. Thank you for coming and sharing this space with me. As I regularly say, this space is for me to make sure that I have the conversations that I want to have, because it's very easy to not have the conversations about stories that I think are really important unless you actually make a dedicated space. So so this is just me wanting to have a conversation, inviting anybody who wants to come and be my friend and join in. And it's lovely that so many of you join us and make this beautifully held, really lovely space. And thank you so much, Alton, for holding that space.
Oh, no.
And sharing your wisdom and your knowledge and your experiences with us tonight.
No, thank you.
Well, it's just been a pleasure. And this is the last in this series. So this is Taking the Tradition on now, is packing up for the summer. And normally we'd be back in September, but I'm going to be at Cape Clear Storytelling Festival for the first Tuesday of September. And so we are going to come back, and we'll be here on October the 6th, Tuesday, October the 6th. Taking the Tradition on will start again. If you are a patron, you will hear about it. Do not worry. And I will be putting it out here, there and everywhere. So patrons will be helping me decide what our new theme is for next year and my new guests. So watch this space. All of you have a wonderful August. Have a wonderful September. Liz has come up here. She will be hosting Cape Clear Storytelling Festival. I'll be here with her. But for now, good night. Thank you to Alton. Thank you to everybody who's here for helping me to take the tradition on.
Thanks a lot. Good night.